Welcome, everyone. Hello.
Order. Welcome to meeting number 3 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on National Defence. Pursuant to Standing Order 81-4 and the motion adopted by the committee on Wednesday, October the 14th, 2020, the committee is meeting today to study the main estimates of 2021. But before we get going, I would respectfully request a moment of silence in memory of Corporal Choi, who was killed in a training accident this past weekend. I would now like to welcome our witnesses. Today we have with us the Honourable Harjit Sajjan, PC, MP, Minister of National Defence, and from the Department of National Defence, Jody Thomas, Deputy Minister, Lieutenant General Mike Rouleau, Vice Chief of the Defence Staff, Sherry Crosby, ADM and Chief Financial Officer from Finance, Troy Crosby, ADM Material Group, Geneviève Bernatchez, Judge Advocate General, Canadian Armed Forces, and from the Communication Security Establishment, Shelley Bruce. All right, I'd like to invite the witnesses to begin with their statements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just also want to thank everybody for their moment of silence. Before I begin, I too want to acknowledge the profound loss of Corporal James Choi during a training exercise in Wainwright, Alberta. My heartfelt condolences goes out to the family, and our entire defense team will be there for them during this difficult time. We have begun an investigation to look into how this tragedy took place and to see what we can do to prevent it from ever happening again. And Madam Chair, since you've already introduced my entire team, I'll just keep moving forward here. And we are here to answer your questions. As you know, the defense team must be ready to anticipate, adapt, and act in today's security context. And that is why we began a historic investment into national defense and the Canadian Armed Forces through our defense policy, Strong, Secure, and Engage, which will increase defense spending, by over 70% that started in 2016, 2017. The $23.3 billion we are requesting will support our people while advancing Canada's broader objectives for security and while supporting the Canadian economy, which is critical as Canada continues its fight against COVID-19. In fiscal year 2020-2021, the economic impact of the defense budget will generate $15.2 billion in GDP and approximately 283,000 jobs. When we first tabled these estimates in February, COVID-19 was still emerging. While there is no specific COVID-related funding in these estimates, the pandemic has added a new layer of complexity to an already challenging threat environment. From the beginning, the defense team has contributed greatly to Canada's whole of government response. And the Communication Security Establishment has worked with government, businesses, and our healthcare institutions to secure our networks and cyber infrastructures as the world moved to working remotely. In this spring, when Canadians were stuck overseas because of COVID-19, the Canadian Armed Forces Operation Globe supported bringing them home to Canada, keeping them healthy and keeping them safe. Through Operation Laser, thousands of Canadian Armed Forces members supported Canadians, including 1,700 who put themselves at risk to help care for the vulnerable in 54 long-term care facilities in Quebec and Ontario. And all this while meeting Canada's security needs both at home and abroad. we are committed to keeping a reliable. We are committed to being a reliable partner and good global citizen. That is why these estimates include 160.3 million in NATO contributions. But security at home and abroad can only be achieved with a diverse, inclusive, and robust defense team. And that's why we're taking deliberate and decisive action to eliminate hateful and harmful conduct. In June, the defense leadership and I met with advisory groups and networks for an anti-racism and discrimination roundtable to better understand their experiences and how we can eliminate barriers and biases. These barriers and biases form systemic racism in our institution that needs to be addressed, and we are doing so. And in July, the Canadian Armed Forces released a hateful conduct policy. The Army, Navy, and Air Force followed with orders to help members identify and deal with hateful conduct within their ranks as well. These orders reinforce the message that intolerance and hate have no place in the Canadian Armed Forces. If you harbor hateful views, I can assure you, we will find you and you will be dealt with. We also recognize that we have more to do to ensure the Canadian Armed Forces becomes more inclusive to women and eliminates gender discrimination, harassment, and sexual misconduct. The entire defense team will continue to invest in creating a safe, inclusive, welcoming space for all our members. It is why these estimates includes nearly 10.5 billion in funding and statutory authorities that will help compensate and take care of our people through their employment and beyond. Building a robust and diverse defense team also helps keep Canada on the cutting edge of innovation. Our scientists and researchers have worked to develop solutions to Canada's COVID-19 challenges, helping develop a COVID-19 risk calculator, which has now been shared with our federal, provincial, and territorial partners, as well as the World Health Organization. And under the Innovation for Defense Excellence and Securities, commonly known as IDEAS program, innovators across Canada are working to help us solve some of the key COVID-19 challenges that we face. These investments in innovation go well beyond supporting not just the Department of National Defense, but also the Canadian Armed Forces. They are critical to helping grow the Canadian economy and helping support middle-class jobs across our country. The Canadian Armed Forces alone employs close to 100,000 regular force and reserve members and continues recruiting today. We also have about 25,000 national defense employees in communities across the country. Our defense policy, Strong, Secure, and Engage, generates billions of dollars of economic benefits that will support millions of Canadians and their families for years to come. The investments outlined in SSE will contribute $108.6 billion to projects and programs between 2021 to 24-25. Investments that will generate more than $85 billion in GDP, helping support good, stable, middle-class jobs for Canadians. Investments that will help support hundreds of thousands of jobs per year on average over the next 5 years as well. The $5 billion in these investments for our ships, aircraft, and land vehicles benefit more than just the companies who get the bids. These contracts create and sustain thousands of jobs and reinvest dollar for dollar back into our communities across our country. So, for example, 1 year after we awarded the Armored Combat Support Vehicle contract, the project has resulted in subcontracts to more than 30 Canadian businesses and supported over 400 jobs. But a strong economy of the 21st century must include investments in fighting the other greatest threats of this generation, climate change. And it is why we are making substantial efforts to green defense. As a department with the greatest infrastructure portfolio and over 20,000 buildings, National Defense produces nearly half of the federal government's greenhouse gas emissions. And thanks to our investments in green initiatives, we've already reduced our emissions by over 30% from 2005 levels. And we are on track to get to 40% reductions by 2025, 5 years ahead of our initial goal. Now, greening defense is also about gaining a competitive edge and contributing to economic growth. In Halifax, we recently completed a new naval training facility that will yield energy savings for years to come through its modern green design. And the local community benefited from the 160 jobs that were created during this construction. 26.1 million in these estimates will help continue our modernization of critical national defense infrastructure while creating jobs and contributing to government's efforts to reach the net zero emissions by 2050. These estimates will continue supporting the important work the defense team is doing to help Canadians and build our economy back better. These defense investments will let us defend Canadians while driving our economy and propelling our society forward. By approving these investments, you are helping the defense team continue their critical work to advance our collective peace and security and prosperity. Thank you very much, and I'll be pleased to take your questions.
All right, thank you very much, Minister. Much appreciated. And in the first round, first questions go to Mr. Bazan. 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and want to thank the Minister and all the departmental officials who are attending committee today. I too want to add my condolences on behalf of all Conservative members of this committee to Corporal James Chow, his family, all his friends, and of course the entire Canadian Armed Forces family for this tragic loss. Minister, glad you talked about Operation Laser and the response to Canadian Armed Forces to COVID-19. Just one quick question on whether or not we're getting prepared to deploy again, especially as the second wave continues to pick up steam, and if you're having any requests from provinces looking at requiring the support of the Canadian Armed Forces during this pandemic.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, for that question, and it's a really important one. This is one thing that we have looked at from the start of this pandemic. Is not only we need to be prepared from the early, but how do we look at the various stages that are coming up? And given that there was a potential for a second wave, and we are in it now, we did plan our response plan accordingly. We felt that we didn't need to go up to the levels that we did initially, but we have the response currently in place across the country to be able to meet the needs as we had outlined before, which is to making sure that we prevent the spread of this horrible disease, making sure that we support vulnerable communities, and at the same time, making sure that we can provide logistical support to areas where it's needed. We haven't had a direct support just yet when it comes to COVID-related environment, but we are postured not only ready to provide the support, but also in case there are any other type of emergencies.
Okay, and so, Minister, just like to know, how is COVID affecting operations of the Canadian Armed Forces, not just domestically, but our international obligations as well?
Thanks, Ben. And this is something that we have to be extremely mindful of, knowing in this pandemic, even though it's we talk about it, it is difficult to prepare for, and it did impact us overseas. And I try to keep yourself and the other critics up to date as time went on. We some of the training that we would normally do, for example, in Ukraine or Operation Impact, obviously wasn't going to go into because of COVID-19 itself. There weren't going to be people coming in, so no reason to actually continue the training. And so we basically based it on the situation on the ground, not only how COVID-19 was being impactful, but were we able to conduct the training in a safe manner? In Ukraine, we have restarted our training, even though some of the numbers have increased, COVID numbers have increased in Ukraine. But the areas that we're operating in, the numbers have not been as high as has been reported. So the training has started there, and which is a good thing because
But I think the thing that we have to be concerned about, and even though I'm a big supporter of course, Ukraine and Operation Unifier, is concerned about healthcare facilities and the I guess the discrepancy in healthcare in Ukraine versus what we have here in Canada, and so safety of troops, especially as COVID numbers in Ukraine go up. But I want to move on because I know that this is something that you're on top of, and I appreciate that you and all staff are making sure our troops are staying as safe as possible and staying healthy during these times. As you're aware, Minister, in the last Parliament, we had a report from Foreign Affairs that showed that the Quick Reaction Force to the United Nations was never registered. In the Vancouver pledges that we made, you suggested that we're going to get up to 600 troops deployed. The top number that we ever saw under the current government's mandate is only 200, 192 is the number I see in front of me. As it stands today, UN peacekeeping numbers are below 40 and has been consistently over the last several months. And we know that, when you take out staff officers and military experts, we are down to 0 troops actually wearing blue helmets on mission. So, you look at Quick Reaction Force never came about. Minister Champagne has apologized officially, even though Liberal members tried to block that apology. He has officially apologized for the misleading of the committee. Have you given completely up on the UN that we're not seeing troops deployed, we're not seeing a Quick Reaction Force registered? Have you reached the same conclusion as many Canadians that the UN just isn't effective anymore?
On the contrary, actually, we are committed to the United Nations, and other multilateral organizations. And when it comes to our support to support operations, we are committed to this. And sometimes when it comes to how the UN system works, it is quite complex. And I had when I had to learn how the system worked, it was quite fascinating to me. And it's about not only making the pledge, but how you then register the system and how it kind of goes through it. And we've been able to gain some experience on this. So I could see how when if somebody doesn't fully understand the system, how somebody can answer
But
the
now all you
question.
have to do is look at the hard data, and you don't see the
But
numbers there.
but
And
but
and I'd say we've always been off base with the government on the Mali
yeah.
mission. And I think the military coup proved that it was the wrong mission for Canada.
Well, let's go a step back a bit, Mr. Rizan. First of all, like you talked about, we shouldn't be going into Mali, and then we talked about how when you visited, you saw the tremendous work that everybody did there. But this is not about numbers when it comes to UN missions. We have to be extremely mindful of what type of capabilities that you provide. Plus, let's not forget one thing I said from the beginning, that we will not commit troops unless we feel it is appropriate mission that's going to have the impact. But this takes collaboration of work to making sure that the what we provide is going to have the impact. So currently, we finished the mission in Mali, and right now we're providing episodic support to logistics, tactical airlift support from Uganda. And the reason, I'll tell you why this is extremely important. When I visited the African Union nations, and especially the African Union headquarters, one of the things that they asked for was high level capability. They have the troops to be able to carry out the missions, but they need the support to be able to carry them out. So, for example, the tactical airlift is not only providing logistical support to many missions now, but also moving troops to the various areas. And the additional support that we have also outlined, we are still working with the UN to determine which not only which mission would be appropriate, but what is the actual timeline. As you know, the smart pledge concept is extremely important. If we strictly do what we've done before, then we're not improving the mission. The smart pledge concept is about making sure that nations contribute, but they're not burdened with taking this on for an extended period. That's why it's important to do a yearly rotation. So that's what we're currently working on. And this doesn't happen over time. This is something that we can't personally do ourselves. This has to be done with the United Nations and many other countries. But we're proud of the work that we've done. We've demonstrated that in Mali, and we'll continue the same type of work as we move forward.
Thank you, Minister. On to Mr. Baker, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today to speak with us. I'd also like to start by expressing my condolences on behalf of my community to the family and friends and all the members of the Canadian Armed Forces on the passing of Corporal James Choi. Minister, in my community of Etobicoke Centre, we're mourning the loss of 42 residents to COVID-19 at the Eatonville Care Centre. As devastating as this is, the death toll would have been much higher if it had not been for the members of the Canadian Armed Forces who were deployed there, and they were deployed there at a very difficult time to care for my constituents. So on behalf of my community, I'd like to take this opportunity through you, Minister, to thank the Canadian Armed Forces, and particularly the Canadian Armed Forces members who cared for and who saved the lives of my constituents in Etobicoke Centre. Minister, my question to you is, could you tell us more about the Canadian Armed Forces response to the COVID-19 pandemic in Ontario?
this was an unprecedented time for Canadians. We knew that it was not easy, nor did we. No one could anticipate what was going to take place, especially when it came for long-term care facilities. As we know that the 80% of the deaths that occurred in Canada have been in long-term care facilities. And we've always stated, when the Canadian Armed Forces are needed, regardless of the task, we will be there. This was unprecedented for the Canadian Armed Forces members, but they quickly learned about what they needed to do, put the appropriate training measures in, and they provided the appropriate support. And one of the things I think I want to highlight is I was extremely impressed with the leadership and how they were able to do this, is that they brought in clear guidelines and measures on how not only that we're going to be going in, but how they're going to be able to assess and make improvements to the long-term care facilities so that they can then help the facility itself to get back on their own feet. And then they were able to hand it off. So that's one of the things I was extremely proud of what how they accomplished.
Thank you, Minister. And that report, as you mentioned, I think it'll be very important in terms of helping us to, as you say, better understand what some of the challenges are in our long-term care system and to help us address some of those challenges. Ministre, nous avons entendu des rapports troublants sur le système de justesse militaire. Pouvez-vous nous éclairer à ce sujet en mettant l'accent sur la meilleure façon de procéder si nous, en tant que parlementaires...
We have no interpretation.
That's okay. Yes, it's working now. So go ahead. So, Minister, we've heard reports, troubling reports on the system of military justice. Could you tell us what is the best way to proceed if, as parliamentarians, have to take part in an examination of military justice?
As you know, that our military justice system is absolutely critical to the functioning of the Canadian Armed Forces. As you know, we ask our Canadian Armed Forces members to do extraordinary things, both here in Canada, and that the military justice system is set up in a way to making sure that it provides the appropriate ability for us to have the discipline and accord ourselves when it comes to operations. And currently, as you know, in the National Defense Act, a judicial review is conducted, and currently an independent judicial review will be conducted this year to making sure that I get the appropriate advice on any potential changes that needs to be done. But one thing is absolutely critical, that having a well-functioning system is extremely important. And I have our JAG here, who I'd like to offer if she has any remarks.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. So what I would like to emphasize this morning is that the Canadian Armed Forces members and Canadians can rest assured that the military justice system is indeed meeting its purpose of maintaining discipline, efficiency, and morale in the Canadian Armed Forces. We'll recall that last year, the Supreme Court of Canada, in its R.V. Stillman landmark decision,
La Cour suprême
confirmed that the military justice system is a system that is necessary, a system that is legitimate, and a system that is constitutional. And in saying so, the Supreme Court of Canada reminded us that this is so because that system regularly receives scrutiny from parliamentarians, scrutiny from the courts, and also scrutiny from independent reviews. And so I believe that these three venues by which the system regularly receives review in order to ensure that it continues to evolve are extremely important in order to ensure that that system continues to evolve with Canadian law and also in accordance with Canadian values.
Quick question.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions. Thank you, Minister, and to everyone for being here today.
All right, thank you. Monsieur Brunel.
Mr. Brunel Duceppe. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to give my condolences to the family of the corporal who passed, and I would like to give my most sincere condolences to his family and loved ones. Thank you for the witnesses to being here. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for being here. First of all, I'm very much interested in the reserves of the Canadian Armed Forces. I would like to know what are the government objectives with regards to equipment for the reserve forces.
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Duceppe. The Canadian Armed Forces Reserves. This is when we conducted our defense policy. When we conducted our defense policy review. Can you hear the interpretation?
J'avais pas de traduction là, mais malheureusement.
I want to make sure you've got it set to interpretation on. Are you properly set up for it?
Non, moi je suis déjà en mode.
No, I'm fine, but I wasn't hearing, but things seem to be okay now.
Okay. No, thank you very much for the question on the reserves. This is something that when we conduct our defense policy review, Canadians, 50% of the conversation was about how the need to support the reserves. And one of the things that we did is, probably one of the most important things is brought pay online. The reserves before were not paid at the same level as a regular force. So the base pay was brought up to the same level as a regular force. So now reservists are paid at the same level. We also wanted to look at their infrastructure. So we announced just a little over a year ago, $250 million for reserve infrastructure across the country. It's something that I announced actually in Montreal. So improvement of their infrastructure. And then we also we'll have additional money for the procurement as well for their equipment. But as we look at aligning their pay, their infrastructure and support, one of the things that the Canadian Armed Forces has also done is looking at bringing back some of the tasks that the reserve used to have. So, for example, bringing in a task like mortar platoon, and making sure that the reserves have the ability to go out.
Malheureusement, on a des petits problèmes de traduction.
I have a small interpretation issue, Madam Chair.
Minister Sajan, to maybe approach his laptop a little bit closer. The interpreters are having difficulty hearing you quite well.
Okay.
So if just a little bit closer to your laptop, that should help.
Great. Okay. How's this? Okay. I'll just continue. So yes, we're absolutely committed to not only supporting the reserves, but making sure that the reserves have the appropriate training, the equipment, but the appropriate tasks to be better supported. The reserves also provide tremendous support when it comes to domestic operations, whether it's floods and fires. And and I'm going to pass it over to the Vice for any comments. During Operation Laser, we had activated the reserves or offered up anybody who wanted to be on full-time employment. And many thousands of them answered the call, and they were ready to provide support for COVID. Vice, do you have any more comments about the reserves?
Thank you, Minister. I would just add, it is true that the reserves form an integral part of any operation that we do in a domestic context. It was true for Op Laser. It was true for operations before that. The nature and character of conflict is adapting, and so General McKenzie is looking carefully at the strategy relative to the money in strong, secure, and engaged for the reserves to make sure that we have a fit-for-purpose plan to spend those funds. And that's all I have, Minister. Thank you.
Oui, en fait,
So my question, in the beginning, wasn't the objective of the government with regards to recruiting. It was, well, I know that we wanted to increase by 21.5% in 2017. So is the pandemic hurting us with regards to these figures and recruiting?
I don't have the recruiting is continually ongoing. I'll let the Vice answer this. We did have initially a slowdown in our recruiting, but also our training. But the military has now worked very hard to making sure that we start the training in a appropriate COVID environment. Vice, you want to take that?
Parfait, parfait.
Perfect. Thank you. Am I mistaken in saying that the distance between populations that are rural populations and reserve units is a determining factor for recruitment? Do you agree with that? Can you elaborate on this?
So, I mean, I have a little bit of experience with this. It depends on the region in Canada. It also depends. So, for example, distance is all dependent on the type of transportation corridor structures that provinces have in those cities. But yes, obviously, distance does play a role. But having said this, there are many units in rural communities that recruit from a longer distance, whether it's in Quebec or here in British Columbia.
Mais donc,
Yes, but do you think you're going to increase the personnel with the existing infrastructure? You're going to create new reserves?
Yes. What we're doing right now when it comes to the reserves, I have a study currently going on across the country to determine where are we going to make the appropriate investments. We need to increase the size of the reserves, but we also need to focus on retention. One of the things that's extremely important, I've said this from the beginning, we're going to make investments into areas where the demographics can actually support the recruitment, not just for a short term, but the long term as well. So we need to do a lot more work on this, but we need to look at the reserves very differently that we have done in the past. And those type of investments will be made based on, as you stated, on population density and where we can actually recruit the members.
Do I still have time? Une question rapide. Quickly, we heard that many brigades are reducing their recruitment quotas. Is this true?
I don't know the exact the numbers, how those is being done, but one thing I can assure you, as Minister of National Defense, I look at the reserves very closely, and there's certain briefings that I'll get on a regular basis when it comes to the reserves, on their infrastructure, their equipment, because I want to make sure that they get the appropriate support. So there will be decisions made across Canada based on where the numbers are of each unit, because every unit has a certain mission task. Within the mission task, they look at the number of people that they have. So they have to make decisions based on that. So it's difficult to say, give you the exact answer exactly where that's happening. But one thing I can assure you, in its totality, we are actually increasing the size of the reserves. But one thing I do want to note is that we are moving forward on looking at, given this pandemic, what type of role that the reserves can play.
Mr. Garrison.
merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I too want to start by expressing the condolences from New Democrats to the family of Corporal James Choi, BC reservist, who was lost in the tragic training accident at Wainwright. I also want to take a moment to thank the more than 1,700 members of the Canadian Armed Forces who pitched in long-term care homes during the COVID crisis, something that I know none of us ever expected to see happen. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for being here today. And I also want to thank you for keeping the lines of communications open during these very strange times that we're in. Given we're having a vote, there's some things I'm not going to be able to talk about today, like the measures to combat racism and extremism in the Canadian Armed Forces, and the measures to improve mental health services. And I guess the general question of how we keep expecting the Canadian Forces to do more and more every year when their operations budget actually doesn't increase. But that said, I'm going to take my one set of questions here and focus on the role of women in the Canadian military. Mr. Minister, you probably know that last week we heard that the Canadian Forces are struggling to meet their targets for women in the Canadian military. And 4 years into the program, when the percentage should have increased according to your goals from 15% to 19%, we've only had an increase of less than 1% of women in the military. So to reach those goals of 25% by 2026, we'd have to double our intake of women every year, and we'd have to have about half of the new recruits every year be women. So my question to the minister is, what special measures are being taken to increase the number of women being recruited into the Canadian military? Because if we don't have some special measures, we're not going to get to those goals.
Toronto, thank you, Mr. Garris. Thank you very much for the question there. Just on your point about operational budget, one thing I can assure you, when it comes to any type of operations, they're separately funded. And anytime there's Canadian Armed Forces are needed, we will make sure that we always make sure that they have the appropriate support to be able to do their work. When it comes to recruitment of women, you're absolutely right. We need to do more, and we are doing more. The baseline that we set of 25% is not just a certain timeline or that we're going to stop. We actually want to keep going. We have made significant progress. We're up to approximately 16. We're at 16.1% of women in the Canadian Armed Forces now. We've actually had increases in numbers starting from 2015, 2016, where we had about 979, over 1,300 in 2016, 2017, over 1,400 in the year after, 1,700 afterwards, and we're on to about 1,800 this year. Improvement is happening. We're not happy also with we'd like to have far more increases, but as you also know, you've highlighted this in the past, we also need to take a look at retention. How do we look at making those supports? So we are providing the appropriate support. I'm getting one aspect that's extremely important is the Operation Honor and the Path to Dignity that was just launched, of looking at how do we make culture change inside the Canadian Armed Forces. So great work is happening. We're not happy with the progress, and nor should we be until we actually meet the mission objective. I had a recent briefing from the Army commander who was actually looking at the new uniform and making sure that they had a gender-based analysis plus on it, making sure they have the appropriate fit. We're putting the appropriate, let's put it this way, the science behind in the work that we're doing. So in terms of the recruitment, there was actually an ideas project that we funded to look at how do we look at analyzing our data so we can actually improve the way we not only make the recruitment, but how do we align the women to the various trades so we can focus on retention. So we're putting all the support and resources onto this to making sure that we improve. Yes, we're not happy with exactly where we are, but I also want to commend the tremendous effort that have been made by the leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. You know me well enough to know where I'm going next in my questions. And that question is about retention. And one of the things that's key to retaining women in the military is dealing with the problem of sexual harassment and sexual assault in the military. And I was a big supporter of Operation Honor, but I have to say, Mr. Minister, we've had two reports, one internal report, one by the Auditor General, and now we have another 2020 internal report that says that victims who make complaints about sexual harassment or sexual assault, still the vast overwhelming majority feel they are dismissed or disregarded. And I want to know what special measures are going to put in place to change this. Obviously, what we're doing here is not making the difference it has to make.
And I'm going to just pass it over to the Vice just with some comments here. Some of the reports that you also see is actually us internally making sure that we get the appropriate, so we stay up to date on how we are progressing. Getting this, having this accurate information allows us to be able to make the appropriate adjustments. And the current path that has been launched is about our efforts on how do we make cultural change inside the Canadian Armed Forces. A lot of great work has been done, but as I mentioned this before, we can't just make a decision and thinking that things are finished. We have to create an organization that evolves with the current changes and make improvements. And that's exactly what we're doing, making sure that we talk to the experts like Dr. Preston, who is now independently able to provide the work for the Canadian Armed Forces. A lot of great work is done. I just want to pass off to the Vice.
Well, Mr. Minister, time is short here. If I can just ask one very specific thing. We passed Bill C-77, which as a major part of it would put victims' rights in a primary focus in the Canadian military justice system. That was proclaimed in June of 2019. We still don't have the regulations in place to implement victims' rights in the military justice system. So can you tell us when those regulations will be done? And soon is not a good enough answer here. We've been waiting a year for those regulations. So what's the holdup?
I wish these regulations can be done almost immediately, but we also committed to consulting with the victims so that the regulations are done appropriately. This is actually something that we committed to, and we need to make sure that we do that well. But when it comes to Bill C-77, it's important to note, one, even though the law was just passed, we actually started taking those measures even before that the law was passed. And now that the law has been passed, we will continue to improve upon everything within the that we have passed, so that the appropriate support and mechanisms are there, even while we look at drafting the regulations. So we are working, as I can assure you, as quickly as possible. I've spoken to the JAG many times about this, but then probably the most critical piece to this, it has to be done. We can't just make a regulation saying that the regulations are complete. The regulations have to be written in a way that actually creates the impact. And that impact can only happen if we continually consult the victims themselves so that we get this right. So that's when it comes to the timeline piece. I can't give you an exact answer on this, but one thing I can assure you, we are going to get this right.
Very much. Madame Gallant, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, what types of PPE were issued to the Canadian Armed Forces personnel deployed to long-term care facilities in Ontario and Quebec?
Vice, you want to take that?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I can't give you the specific names of the companies, but PPE that was issued to the people in long-term care facilities, ma'am, was of a medical grade, and we paid particular attention to make sure that we weren't putting any Canadian Armed Forces troops into any positions in the long-term care facilities unless they received medical protection that was to the same standard as what the medical folks were using.
And were all the Canadian Armed Forces personnel issued the same PPE?
Again, Madam Chair, thank you for the question. I can't answer specifically if there was a uniform distribution. There was a number of suppliers that were in play at the time. It was a very dynamic environment. So it's entirely possible that there were variances across the country, ma'am. We can get that back to you in writing with a little more examination.
Was the PPE used from a stockpile or was it purchased new in 2020?
So there was a stockpile that we've had in terms of that we've always kept for situations like this. But during that time, there were a lot of discussions of not only having to use a stockpile, but actually making sure that we ordered the appropriate, so not only we can fill it up for us, but also how we can actually distribute. I've got certain numbers if you like to have some of the numbers from surgical masks, N95s. But I'm happy to provide that to you separately as well.
Okay, that would be lovely. Thank you. When were the supplies in the stockpile purchased? What was the expiration date on the PPE?
So when it comes to this is where the Surgeon General takes particular care to making sure that we have the appropriate supplies, because we're an organization that you never know when we can be called upon for any type of situation. So we make sure that our supplies are ready to go. One thing I can assure you that there's a certain timeline, and the Vice can actually go into this and how many weeks or days that we need to have supplies ready for if we're ever called upon. Vice, you want to add anything to that?
Minister, all I would add is that we pay particular attention, like for wave 2, that we have 30, 60, and 90-day supplies based on the number of troops that we think we'll have to employ in different areas.
And what was the expiration date on the PPE for the people deployed on Op Laser?
It's just on the expiration date. The equipment that we're going to be providing to our troops.
No. What was already used? I want to know what was used in Op Laser.
Was
the PPE expired?
Of course not. Any equipment that we provide to our troops are going to be making sure that it's not only the appropriate equipment. This is something that was assured by the Surgeon General, and to making sure that we are assessed exactly where they're going and do they have the appropriate equipment for that. So, for example, somebody that's going into a long-term care facility to have not only appropriate equipment, but the certain measures that need to take into place versus somebody who is going to be working outside of long-term care.
Thank you. And are CAF personnel still deployed via Operation Laser? And if yes, where are they deployed?
We have currently, we've had, don't have any folks actually inside any type of long-term care facilities, but we are poised to be able to provide the appropriate support. We have a request in for supporting some Indigenous communities, but not directly for Operation Laser. Has anything changed on that device?
Minister, I would only add the small numbers of people who are helping some of our other government department friends in relation to go forward planning and logistics work.
Was there a staging area outside the facilities, a place where the armed forces personnel could don their PPE before going in and doff it after coming out and kept separate from the regular clothes they wear?
Wes, you want to take that?
Yes, Minister. Madam Chair, thank you for the question. So yes, JTF Central and FOI Est had their own tactics, techniques, and procedures that they were using. There was absolutely areas progressively as you got closer to the quote unquote affected zones that people would stage out of the dress of the day, out of their current uniform, and progressively into the medical piece. In fact, that's one of the biggest things that we brought to the chaotic situation was this sense of tactics, techniques, and normalizing a very frenetic environment.
Okay, and
Thank you.
to NATO.
Afraid, Monsieur Robia.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for being present with us this morning. I would first of all like to thank the Canadian Armed Forces on behalf of Quebec for the work that they carried out in the long-term care facilities. I have several questions on the excellent work that was done. How exactly did the training and preparation take place before the military staff went into the long-term care facilities?
Take the this question, but I just want to add to it first how impressed I was at how the Canadian Armed Forces took something that they've never done before and prepared themselves with the appropriate training, have the right level of training for the because it was also saving lives and all, but treating the elderly with the dignity and respect that they deserve. And that's exactly what they did. And the systems that they put into place, the training that they put into place, the support that they got from the Red Cross for that training was absolutely immense. Vice, you want to get into the details of it?
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. La seule chose que j'ai rajoutée.
Answer. Thank you, Mr. Minister. The only thing that I would add is that this was definitely a non-traditional deployment. So there was medical staff that was liaising with people coordinating at each facility. And we had formal training courses where each military staff member had to go through that training. I think it lasted 2 or 3 days. So all military staff had that formal training before they went into a long-term care facility. Question. After most of the troops left, some specialized units remained on site. Can you talk about their work?
Merci pour la question.
Answer. Thank you for your question. I'm not sure I understand because you're talking about specialized staff. Actually, when the mission ended at the end of June, we recalled all of the military staff from the long-term care facilities. The headquarters in Montreal remained. I was commanding the operation at the time, and I don't remember that we left forces behind, specialized staff as such, in different long-term care facilities. Question. Can you talk about the transition that was made between you and the Red Cross? Answer. Thank you very much for your question. I don't have much to offer on this because this was not a task that belonged to the Canadian Armed Forces. We had liaison activities with the provinces, and I provided advice on how long we could stay given all the other duties and tasks that we had. But it was up to federal and provincial authorities to work with the Red Cross to develop capacity at the Red Cross. It was not up to the Canadian Armed Forces to train them as such. Thank you very much.
What the transition that took place, for example, the measures that the Canadian Armed Forces put into place to making sure that the long-term care facility was able to carry out their task, were able to kind of set up a structure and give confidence that it could be handed over. So when the Red Cross had to come in or be handed off full responsibilities back to the actual facilities, it's those measures that the Canadian Armed Forces kind of put in, and actually they were probably a little bit more stringent than the province themselves, that gave confidence to the long-term care facilities that things could actually carry on. And this allowed, when the Red Cross came in to provide that support, they were able to transition very much smoother.
Alors, dans l'ensemble,
Question. So generally speaking, the services provided by the Canadian Forces were very much appreciated all over Canada, but especially in Quebec, because we're talking about Quebec here. Thank you, Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. Question. Thank you. In December 2017, the Government of Canada launched a call to replace the Hornet CF-18s. Up to now, how much money was devoted to the project to have provisional capacities? And what about the future replacement Hornets?
Replacement of the F-18 has been a extremely important for our government. As you know, this project has been going a long time, even before our government, and we committed to a competition to replace the current F-18. But one of the problems that we also had, that we also had missions to fly. We had our NORAD commitments and we had our NATO commitments. And that's why it was important for us to be able to invest in our current F-18 fleet. Plus, we also bought additional aircraft of the same type from Australia, which we have some upgraded, some are already. And the total project approximately is $339 million for the upgrade. But the upgrades that we're also doing, Mr. Giuseppe, is in upgrading the defensive suite, but also the combat capability of the fighters. And what this allows us to do is to continue to be able to fly our missions, meet our commitments, while we replace our future fighter capability. And currently, we have 3 companies that are currently in the mix. And obviously, I can't talk more about that because they're in a very sensitive stage of that competition.
Question. How do you explain the decision to buy 88 new fighter planes rather than any other number of planes?
The number that we based it on is one of the reasons why when I came into the Ministry of National Defense was that there was initially to buy 65. And I asked the same question, why the number of 65? But we had to take a look at what are our current responsibilities, our NORAD commitments, plus our NATO commitments as well. So based on those 2 main commitments, plus the training that we had to do, is how we came up with the number of 88 aircraft.
See, Mr. Garrison.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like, Mr. Minister, to return to the question of the role of women in the Canadian military. And I guess I am disappointed with the rate of progress. And I just want to point out on recruitment, if we continue at the current rate of a 1 percentage point improvement every 4 years, that means it'll be another 30 years before the Canadian Forces reaches its 25% goal, and closer to 60 years before it reaches 30% women in the military. And that's a level which is generally acknowledged. You need about 30% of women to change the culture in any institution. So I'm also disappointed with the progress on the regulations. It's been more than a year. It shouldn't take more than a year to consult those victims. But I want to return to another disturbing part of this, and that is, if we're going to change these attitudes in the Canadian military, it's necessary to train future leaders. Statistics Canada just released a report covering cadets at the Royal Military College in Kingston and the Royal Military College of Saint-Jean for the year 2019. Those statistics showed that 15% of women at the colleges experienced sexual harassment or assault in the previous 1 year. 7 in 10 of the military college students experienced or witnessed directly unwanted sexualized behavior. And of those who witnessed behavior, over 90% said they did not intervene because they weren't comfortable in intervening. In speaking to the media, Mr. Minister, you said that you would take all actions necessary to deal with this problem at the Royal Military Colleges. Can you tell us today what those actions are and when they will be taken?
Mr. Garrison, I'm glad you raised these points. This is one area that we have devoted much effort, and we will continue to devote until we make sure that we don't have any these type of behaviors. One incident is too many. And when it comes to our Royal Military College institution, it is an extremely precious organization that we need to make sure we protect, but we need to make sure that we actually look at how we support our women who are joining there. A lot of measures have been taken in force. We have made the initial appropriate investments into the college. The
Point
path
d'ordre, Madame la Présidente. Point d'ordre. On a des problèmes de traduction.
A point of order. We have translation issues because the translators have trouble hearing the minister because there's distortion in the sound, and it's hard for us to understand what's going on and what's being said.
microphone that was given to me is not working, so I had to use what's in the laptop. Is it better now? I'm trying to speak as loudly as I can.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We have to change. It's now Mr. Dowdle, please.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the Minister for being here today. I just want to take an opportunity to mention something quickly. I'm just over a year in my mandate here and very thankful to be here, but I have to say if there was two parts that have disappointed me so far, certainly from my perspective, is that it's only our third meeting here, that I would like to have had more opportunity to speak. And I guess the other one is that even now with our discussion today is that I'm yet to see a budget tabled since I've been elected. So those are probably two of the disappointments that I've had. But anyway, I'd like to follow up. I had a discussion before on our last meeting, and I guess it was in March of this year. And as you know, National Defence and Veterans Affairs Canada has built a suicide prevention strategy late in 2017. In 2018, we had 15 suicides. And in April, your department revealed that there were 20 suicides in 2019, and that was the highest number actually since 2014. So just for perspective, 175 Canadian military personnel have died by suicide since 2010, which is more than 158 Canadians that were lost during the whole Afghanistan war from 2001 to 2014. So we know we want to invest. We think it's so important, probably more than ever. Mental health, more than ever, especially now with COVID, is an issue all across Canada, but certainly a huge issue in my personal riding in Baseboard and Simcoe Grey. So I'd like to ask the Minister, where are we in 2020?
This is something that hits, I think, all the Canadian Armed Forces members extremely hard, and all of us who work and support the Canadian Armed Forces. Every time we have an incident like this, it is extremely hurtful, and forces us to making sure that we ask ourselves the question: do we have the appropriate support? Are we doing the right thing? And one thing I can assure you, we don't leave any stone unturned. Any type of support that is required, making sure that we try to learn from every incident. even during this pandemic, we knew that it was going to be even a greater challenge for members. So programs like So Soldier On, we had to we were making sure that they had the right support so they can actually take their support.
Mr. Minister, I just want to say they're great initiatives, and I think everyone in the House supports those initiatives. But I'm just saying, do we have definitive numbers? Are we seeing that we're making investments, but you always have to have your checks and balances, and that's the part that I'm kind of confused upon, and it's the question that I'm asked constantly in my writing.
If you're asking for the exact numbers that we have, I don't have the exact numbers that we have today. But one of the things that we've seen is sometimes we have to take a look at is, are we providing the appropriate support for our members and their families? That's one thing I can assure you that we are. But sometimes we need to continually learn from every single incident so that we prevent it. This is hurtful, I think, for all of us. One thing I can assure you that we are not leaving any stone unturned to provide the appropriate support. I can have more information and sent to you and have even a greater discussion, because this does require a far greater time for a level of conversation on the type of work that we're doing, and not only to prevent this, but how do you actually look at members who have kind of gone through it to provide that peer support? So I can give many examples like this, but at the end of the day, we need to continue to strive to provide all the necessary support for our members.
Thank you, Minister. And I know I probably don't have much time. And
you have, Mr. Dowdell, you have one minute remaining. But 1 minute, 1 minute. The bells have begun to ring. So we need unanimous consent to continue for another 10 minutes. Are we good for that?
No.
Let us continue.
No?
Yes, no. I think all of us can log in and vote virtually. We don't need to be going to the House physically to vote.
There is no unanimous consent. No.
No unanimous. Then I'm afraid then we need to adjourn.
Can I at least ask my last question quickly?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but no unanimous consent. So then the committee needs to adjourn. Thank you to all of the witnesses. Minister, merci pour votre présence et votre temps aujourd'hui.
Thank you for your presence and your time here today, Mr. Minister, and we appreciate your presence here.